and we also had a soup kitchen at the cathedral downtown, again, mainly for families or women with children, because there are many places where the men could go.
But the people the workers of a Catholic worker community, if I was just to take a survey of them, I could expect them to be living in community, not like here where your volunteers have a house with their husband or whatever,
Correct.
and they just show up here during the day.
Correct. Yeah, people do.
But you lived in community.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
When I went up to San Jose then, after Seattle, when I came back down to San Jose, I associated with the Catholic Worker House. So I lived in the neighborhood, but I did not live in the house. I had a regular job at that point because I had to pay off some school loans. So I was working full time, but on evenings and weekends, I would volunteer my time. And so I was sort of an adjunct member of that intentional community.
And there's usually some of those as well.
Yeah.
What does it mean to be a senior fellow in the American Leadership Forum?
The American Leadership Forum, again, that's a national organization. It's a wonderful opportunity in the communities where there are chapters. What happens is that
there aren't that many.
There aren't that many, but hopefully there will be more because it's just been such a wonderful experience. So what happens is the chapter brings together 20 to 25 leaders in the community for a year-long experience together, and it's very diverse, and that is some of the brilliance of this. So I was invited in as a United Methodist pastor. The sheriff of Placer County was in there, the head of the Business Journal, dean of the School of Business at Sac State, ballet, a couple of more attorneys, vice president of Intel, vice president of Hewlett Packard. So it was Center for Fathers and Families, which works mainly with fathers and families. So nonprofit, public, clergy, all in there together. So we didn't know each other when we got there, but the whole intent of the American Leadership Forum is to bring diverse leaders together for the betterment of the community, and it was really largely based on forming relationships. So these are people that I never would have met.
And there's like a class structure, like a personal development training type of structure.
Yeah, we met monthly. We did a 5-day wilderness trip together where we climbed the mountain and we rappelled, and did the rock climbing thing. So all of that was building relationship, understanding each other. What we found out, we were much more alike than unalike. So
surprise.
And so what was great about that is that the commitment that we have, the covenant that we share, is if I'm working on a project and now as Francis House and I need help, I can call any of these people in the American Leadership Forum. We've all shared the basis of experience of
and senior fellow just means you graduated the program.
And there are continuing retreats and meetings and things that continue to pull us together.
And so they did the 25 of you, and then they did another 25, and then they did another 25.
Right, I was in the second class.
Okay.
And I think we're up to class 15 now, so it's grown.
How long is it?
It's a year-long.
A year-long
program, right.
I know you're involved with the Interfaith Council. Can you tell us 1 or 2 or 3 projects that you've worked on with them that you think stand out as being exemplary or seminal?
Well, it was in 1999, I think, that 3 of the synagogues in town were firebombed. And
I remember.
Yeah, that was a pivotal moment for so many reasons for many of us in this community. Happened on a Friday morning. The rabbi was a good friend of mine.
The worst one that got it was the one out here in the South area.
Correct.
Which is actually the oldest synagogue on the West Coast.
With the oldest library west of the Mississippi.
Right.
And biggest at the time. So, anyway, Brad Bloom was a good friend of mine, the rabbi who was here at the time. So, long story short, the United Methodist Church was having a convention at the community center. I went to my bishop. I said, we need to give it to them for their services. This whole thing started to mushroom. By Sunday night, the convention center was opened. The auditorium that held over 3,000 people. There were probably another 3,000 people outside. This community came together so strongly and said, not in our town. This is happening to all of us. It happened this time to the Jewish community, but it's also happened to the Asian.
It's like that poem. The guy said they came for the Jews.
Exactly. Niebuhr. I think it was Niebuhr that said that. So what happened on this still gives me shivers to think about it, but I spent a lot of time on the phone over that weekend. It was Father's Day. And I called religious leaders all over, clergy, leaders, whatever, and I said, you got to come on. I guess it was Monday night. I said, you have to be there. And at first they didn't really get it, but then the news kept going and they kept. So when they opened the curtain of the convention center that night, when we had all gathered, there were over 250 clergy of every denomination standing there, united, saying, we're all here with you. It was an amazing moment. There was a standing ovation, I think, that lasted 10 minutes because it was just so powerful. So that was one example.
Another one that stands out?
Okay, then we go to 9/11, which happened too soon thereafter. That was a couple years later. Same thing. Everybody was in shock. The Muslim community at that point was being targeted. We were concerned for them. And so the same thing happened again when I said we're going to have a service at our church the next night. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to do it. And so for us on the West Coast, that happened, early in the morning. The next night, we had an interfaith service at my church. The imam was there, the Muslim community, the Jewish community, the Christian community. Everybody was there. The governor showed up. I got a call saying the governor wants to come. And I said, oh, yeah, right. So, but anyway, the governor came. So, again, we all stood there together. And we said, No, it was Wilson at the time.
Oh, okay.
No, not Wilson, Gray Davis.
Gray Davis. So what did you do in particular? In what way did you embrace the Muslim community after 2001?
Well, again, we just started developing relationships. They are very hospitable. They invite us to their events. They have like iftar. They're breaking the fast after Ramadan. They invite us to that so we better understand. That's when we birthed the Thanksgiving service together so that we would have those relationships not just in times of crisis, but as part of life. And so now it's very fluid, the relationships that we have. Not that there haven't been tense moments, because when some of the events happened in Israel and Palestine and all, it affected the relationships with us. But ultimately the commitment between the imam and it's a couple who are the rabbis and myself.
Okay. Is there another project or anything in particular?
Well, I know when I don't have the dates and all of that
That's
or
fine.
the configurations, but I know with Habitat for Humanity, that's another one where some of the faith communities the interfaith communities have come together and built houses together, working right alongside of each other.
I'm going to ask you to explain what Friends Outside is to us, and then tell us why someone who's just, a workaday Joe should care.
Okay. Friends Outside is an organization. I think actually now they've changed their name, but Friends Outside is an organization that works with the families of incarcerated people. So that's so important to break this cycle. So many kids grow up and they think they can't surpass their parent. And so what happens is they do something and they go to jail about the same time their parent did. And so it's to work with the kids, support the families, enable visitation if that's a helpful and positive thing. If it's not, to make sure that the kids are well cared for, to make sure that they have Christmas and
Is there a
holidays.
mentorship program like Big Brother type of thing?
Yeah, there's all of that involved. It just, again, Friends Outside is a national organization, so it depends on the chapter and what they have available. But what so impressed me about the chapter here in Sacramento when I went on their board and went to the first board meeting, it was almost all made up of judges and parole officers and probation officers.
Why do you think people involved in the criminal justice system would volunteer their time to that? Why
they
do you think?
really want to help break the cycle, and they really do have a heart for the kids. They feel bad for these kids that they're in this situation. So some of the probation officers and parole officers, sometimes depending on what one's plight in life is, they can be seen as the hard-ass people, right? But they're really, they're people who care. Not all of them, by any means, but the ones who just really, really want to help these kids, they put their feet and their mouth where Well, they put it into action. Their belief in that. I was really impressed.
So somebody who's not a criminal, they have no criminal history in their family, they don't know any criminals.
Mm-hmm.
Why should they care? Why should they volunteer? Why should they give money?
Well, they can care because they're people. And I think one of the things that brings many of us together, not all of us, are children. The innocence of children, the possibility for these children's lives, and the obstacles that they have to overcome. That's really a lot of what draws me to this work, to that work, is, these kids didn't ask for this. They're not to blame for this. They're starting out.
Do you think that the people who are homeless today, of the last 5,000 people who've walked through your door who are homeless, do you think they're to blame for their plight?
Everybody makes decisions, so some of the people will be the first to say, you know what, I made really bad decisions, and here I am suffering some of the consequences. So yes, there are some people who I don't know, blame is the word, but they take responsibility for where they are. So many people that are finding themselves homeless or near homeless right now, no, it's not their fault. There's so many factors that we have to put in.
Because the reason I ask that is because, as you know, our society says that.
Oh, absolutely.
That it seems to be an unstated thing or semi-stated that if you are well-to-do, you must be godly and deserving, and if you're struggling, it's because of some moral fault of your own.
Right.
Can you speak to that point?
Well, that is certainly the perception of laziness, of irresponsibility, and some of that is true, but not nearly to the proportion I think that society would like to think, because it's easier to dismiss that way. If you think, oh, they chose it, they're responsible, let them deal with it, I don't have a moral or spiritual obligation to do that. But that's just a small percentage. I would even say it's a small percentage. What we're experiencing a lot more that all of us should pay attention to, and I have the degree in peace studies, I'm an aspiring pacifist, but we have lots of veterans who are coming home from these crazy wars right now, and they are not being given the service and the attention.
It's the same thing that happened after the conflict in Southeast Asia.
Exactly. And so here are all these veterans, they go, why did most of them enlist? Because of the economy, because there was an opportunity.
I'm a Navy veteran. I'm a Navy veteran, and I went in because I was tired of working for minimum wage, and I thought that they could help me get some money to educate myself.
Right. So there we are. And these people are coming home, traumatic brain injuries because of weapons are being used because of our ability medically to save a lot of these people that in other wars would have died. Just the trauma that so many of these people are seeing is horrible. And so more and more people who are coming here are veterans. And darn it, if anybody starts to say that they're to blame for their situation, we all have responsibility for these veterans.
For allowing our Congress people to vote yes and authorize George Bush to go to war.
Right. And then the economy too, like just that story I told you about the man knocking on the door saying, I don't know how to be homeless. So many of the people, because of this economy, they can't get jobs, they're losing their homes, the mortgages situation, we all are familiar with that. So these people aren't to blame, they are victims of the economy.
So what would you say to the guy who says, you know what, I bought a cheap house in a cheap neighborhood, and I got a 30-year fixed mortgage, and I didn't take one of these fancy mortgages so I could get a nicer house in a nicer neighborhood, and I'm why should I pay for their choosing to take that other route, getting a negative amortizing loan and all that, and then losing their house when the payment goes up?
Those are tough questions. A lot of us have made decisions that weren't the brightest. When everything is going well, it's easy to get swept up in that. So yes, there is some responsibility for that. But also, the person who has the low payment on their mortgage and has done it for many years, the cost of housing has increased significantly, and people were just trying to get in a home again to provide. Did many people borrow beyond their means, take out second mortgages? Yes. Were they helped to and encouraged to do that? Yes. So there's no one right or wrong answer to what happened then, but certainly, my personal opinion, the banks could have done a whole lot more to help with this situation as well. So I don't think it's all the people who are, borrowing. They were enticed to do a lot of that stuff. So there's responsibility, and if we want to put blame, we can do that in all directions.
Tell us about your involvement with Planned Parenthood, please.
I served on the board of Planned Parenthood for a good number of years. I think they do an amazing job in terms of outreach and care for women, also for partners if they choose to come. There are several reasons why I chose to put my time and energy in there. One, I think abortion is a very, very difficult choice. I think for many women who have experienced abortion, they live with that the rest of their lives.
I would say without a doubt you'd have to.
Yeah. So my position is let's do everything in the world that we can